Today, our scripture passage is from Jonah, the first reading, and from St. Luke, the 10th chapter. The gospel for today turns itself towards what we pay attention to today, where we're called, the church calls us to contemplate, and it is the memorial of Our Lady of the Rosary. Now, let's look at that first reading. And in the first reading, Jonah approaches the people of Nineveh. And the people of Nineveh had turned away from God, and God was going to destroy that town. But with prayer and inward reconciliation, they turned from their ways, and God spared the town of Nineveh because of their prayers, their contemplation, their understanding that God was there to hold them, to love them. And it was through their communal prayer that this happened. And then in Luke's gospel is our favorite story of my favorite saints, Martha and Mary, and the story of the dishes. It seems that Jesus had come to visit his friends, Martha, Mary, and Lazarus. And while there, Martha was preparing everything, making certain everyone was being served. She was being extraordinarily hospitable, which God calls us to hospitality, to welcome people into our homes and into our lives. And she was spot on. But she turned, and while she was doing all of the work, she saw her sister, Mary, was just in the room, listening to Christ. In fact, taking up one of the preferred spots, sitting at his feet, and filled with a little bit of, let's say, eagerness to make certain the job was done. She calls out to Christ, says, "Lord, would you please have Mary help me?" Now, I'm not going to get into, why didn't the men help her on that? That's not the story. But this is, the story of Martha's anxiety, that she was doing all of the work by herself. And Christ says, "Oh, Martha, you're just worried about everything. Mary has chosen wisely, and it won't be taken away from her." I need to tell you a story. And it drove the whole idea home to me about contemplative prayer and meditation, and the whole idea of what the rosary is all about, the idea of listening to Christ. I just retired as a deacon. Now, it doesn't mean I'm not a deacon. What it means is that I'm not on the altar as much as I used to be. When folks ask me, how is it? I say, well, 90% of the time that my work as a deacon was not on the altar. Only about 10% was on the altar. Well, kind of retired from that 10% in the parish at St. Mary's where I am. But I'm still a deacon, and on occasions when funerals or baptisms are requested, I serve again as a deacon. And many of the travelings that I do to preach the word will continue. But here's what I noticed. I had not been able to sit in the pews with my wife for a couple of decades. I'd been on the altar. And finally, I noticed that about the first or second week after receiving communion, I didn't have to worry about who was going to receive it. Were the Eucharistic ministers in their places, and were all the people being served. I didn't have to be Martha. I received communion and went back and sat in the pews and was able to see the beauty and joy of having God right within me. I wasn't doing the dishes. I experienced the joy that you parishioners, all parishioners who sit in the pews, get a chance to do all the time, every time. And you priests and deacons and bishops and cardinals understand we miss that moment where we get to be Mary again. Don't miss that. And when we say the the scripture, when we say and repeat the rosary, it is that time for us again to contemplate our moments, our love, our joy, and our presence of God within us. It was an awakening for me. So if you get a chance, when you receive communion, be quiet. And if you get a chance, say your rosary. Then ask God, Lord, what are we going to do today?